All right, Shalom, Shalom. I'm gonna ride y'all coming at you with another lesson straight out of the Lions Den camp of Yashala. But before I get started with this lesson, I would like to give all praise to the Heavenly Father in the name of His only begotten Son and their proper true names. We're gonna start off by saying, Call, Halayim, La, Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Ha, Rekak, Kwadash, Ma'amat. Definitely want to give double honors to the elder apostles of GMS and their elders. Definitely want to give double honors to my elder apostle, Ahad Wan, Bun Yashala of the Lions Den camp, located right here in Jacksonville, Florida. Shalom to the sincere men, women, and children that believe in sincerity and truth and that believe in the names of Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai. Shalom. All right, today's lesson is just going to be a very quick lesson about the downfall of the temple, King Solomon's temple, during the times of 586 BC. All right, this is 2 Kings chapter 25, starting at verse 1. The subtitle says, Nebuchadnezzar, right, besieges Jerusalem. All right, and they give you a couple more precepts you can go into. All right, verse 1, it says, And it came to pass in the 9th year of his reign, in the 10th month, in the 10th day of the month, that Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came, he and all his hosts, against Jerusalem, and pitched against it. And they built forts against it round about. And the city was besieged until the 11th year, all right, to the 11th year of King Zedekiah. And on the 9th day of the 4th month, the famine prevailed in the city, and there was no bread for the people of the land. And the city was broken up, and all the men of war fled by night by the way of the gate between two walls, which is by the king's garden. Now the Chaldeans were against the city round about, and the king went the way toward the plain, and the army of the Chaldeans pursued after the king, and overtook him in the plains of Jericho, and all his armies were scattered from him. So they took the king and brought him up to the king of Babylon, to Riblah, if I said that right. And they gave judgment upon him. And they slew the sons of Zedekiah before his eyes, and put out the eyes of Zedekiah, and bound him with fetters of brass, and carried him to Babylon. All right, and then they went into the burning. Jerusalem burned and plundered. All right. So the reason why I'm grabbing this today, just to kind of give a quick historic teaching about the downfall of the temple, man. All right, that's basically started in 586 BC, where the king of Babylon came against us, man. The Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, who are the true Israelites of the scriptures, man. And for these things, they have to pay for this, man. This stuff that the burning down of the temple, them unaliving us, putting us in captivity. All right, the Lord has a punishment for this place, man. So just like they burnt down our temple, right, we're going to burn down, well, I can't even say we, right, the Lord is going to burn down their temple, man, right. Let's grab this precept real quick. All right, this is 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 10. It says, But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, and in the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. See, and that's going to happen via ICBM, so like you're going through the intercontinental ballistic missiles, man. All right, that's going to consume them. All right, the Lord is making them create their own weapon to destroy them, to destroy themselves, man. It says, Seeing then that all these things, seeing then that all these things shall be dissolved. See there, what manner of persons ought ye to be in all whole conversations and godliness? All right, this is why we do the work of the Lord, by doing these videos, teaching our people the truth, man. They burnt down our temple, and technically Babylon is their temple, man, today, meaning, where we stand at, the whole continent of America. It says, Looking for and hastening until the coming of the day of Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushua, wherein the heavens, where being on fire, shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. Right. So what conversation should you be in? What time, what type of spirit should you be in? Right. We should be in the time of prophesying against this place, man. go to Jeremiah Salakia real quick. Just something popped in my mind. Salakia. All right, this is Jeremiah 51 and verse. What the heck? This lady just come up by my car. Yeah. Salakia. This is Jeremiah 51. It says, Babylon judged for sins against Israel. It says, thus saith the Lord, right, Yahweh, behold, I will rise up against Babylon, and against them that dwell in the midst of them, that rise up against me, a destroying wind. Right, so this is going to the destruction of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua is bringing that destruction against this place Babylon, man. It's gonna happen through World War III nuclear destruction. It says, and will send unto Babylon fanners, right? These are enemies that shall fan her, right, and shall empty her land. For in the day of trouble they shall be against her round about. Against him that bendeth, let the archer bend his bow. Right. So when they come surround this place, man, they're gonna shoot at this place, man. Right, but shoot them with what? And shoot them with those ICBMs. That's going to cause that fervent heat, man. You know, it says, against him that bendeth, let the archer bend his bow, and against him that lifteth himself up in his brigandine, right, in his protection, thinking they're protecting their bunkers, their golden domes. It says, and spare ye not her young men, destroy ye utterly all her hosts, man. So this place is going to be plundered. It's going to be destroyed. It's going to be, they're going to completely destroy this place, just like what happened to to King Solomon's temple, man, to us in that day, in those times. So like it says, against him that bendeth, let the archer bend his bow, and against him that lifteth himself up in his brigandine, in his protection, and spare ye not her young men, destroy ye utterly all her hosts, man. You know, and Lord willing, we'll be protecting that day and be delivered, man. We'll be part of that number that's destined for salvation, man. It says, thus the slain shall fall in the land of the Chaldeans, see, and that they, so even though if they think they got away with it then, they still have to pay for it. And the Lord, he's not slack concerning his promise, man. And one of the promises that, he's going to come back and, vengeance is his, man, against 2/3 of our people, for the ones that pierced him, as well as the ones that came against his people and destroyed his people physically and spiritually, man. It says, thus the slain shall fall in the land of the Chaldeans, and they that are thrust through in her streets, for Israel have not been forsaken. See there, nor Judah of his power, of Yahweh, right, God of hosts, the God of armies, right. It says, though their land was filled with sin against the Holy One of Israel, flee out of the midst of Babylon, and deliver every man his soul. Be not cut off in her iniquity, for this is the time of Yahweh's vengeance. See there, he will render unto her a recompense, man. See there. And then it goes right into Babylon being a golden cup. It says, Babylon hath been a golden cup in Yahweh's hand, that made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunk enough of wine. Therefore, the nations are mad, man. They're fools, man. And they know they're fools, man. That's why they starting to turn against this place, man, for agreeing to their demonocracy and bowing down to this place, man. To this place of idolatry, this place of wickedness, man. It says, we would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Forsake her. So we have to forsake this place, man. And let us go, everyone, into his own country. For her judgment reacheth to heaven, and is lifted up even to the skies. All right, see there? Now, let's go to, I hit the wrong button. Isaiah. I don't know why I keep hitting the wrong. Let me see if I could just slide over. Come on. Here we go. All right. Because sometimes if I back out, it closes. All right, there we go. All right, here we go. All right, Isaiah 63. It says, subtitle, God's vengeance on the nations. All right. It says, who is that cometh from Edom with dyed garments, man, from Basra? This that is glorious in his apparel, traveling in the greatness of his strength, man. So, right. And, basically just going into the Lord. This is talking about Yahweh Shai coming to destroy the nation of Edom, man. It says, and him just, it says that he's basically going to, be filled with, covered in blood, but he's not going to get a stain on his garment. You best believe that he's going to be fresh the whole way through. But it's just letting you know, like, how angry he is, man, and he's coming to, to judge, man. It says, wherefore, I skipped a little bit. It says, who is this that cometh from Edom with thy garments from Basra? Right? This that is glorious in his apparel. See, traveling in the greatness of his strength. Right? Coming in those chariots. It says in his glorified form. It says, I that speak in righteousness, mighty to save. Right? This Yahushua. Wherefore art thou red in thy apparel, and thy garments like him that treadeth in the wine fat. I have trodden the wine press alone, and of the people there was none with me, for I would tread them in my anger. See, he's pissed, and trample them in my fury, and their blood shall be sprinkled upon my garment, and I will stain all my raiment. For the day of vengeance is in my heart, and the year of my redeem is come. Okay, you see? There we go. We finally, I don't know why it be doing me like that, man. Let's go to Isaiah 47. All right, this is Isaiah 47:1. It says, come down and sit in the dust, O virgin, right? Meaning unconquered, right? Daughter of Babylon. They can't even say they've been losing lately. That's why that's why this precept is so important, man, because they've been brought low. They've been exposed for their wickedness and their when they say, and they're full of confusion, man. The people are confused. MAGA, these MAGA people, supporters, thought that, Trump was going to do something magnificent for the country, man. For USA, man. But they're actually saying that everything that they wanted is not being fulfilled, man. That they let a tyrant inside the office, man. But sit down in the dust is going into that confusion. That's why this place is called Babylon, man. Babylon just means confusion, man. Let's get it. All right. See, Hebrew.
Strong's H894. Bavel. Right.
It says Babel or Babylon, confusion by mixing. Right? It says, let's go down to the Strong's definition. It says confusion. Strong's definition, H1101, confusion. Babylon. It says including Babylonia and the Babylonian Empire. All right. But it says, right, sit on the ground. There is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans. Going back to Isaiah 47:1. Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon, man. You're losing your power. Yahweh Shem Yahushua is snatching it from up under your feet, man. O daughter of the Chaldeans, right? It says, for thou, see, the daughters of the Chaldeans. So they have to, they're back here today to receive their punishment, man, for what they did. And actually, you can go back to the time of us fleeing Egypt when we crossed the Red Sea, and how the Edomites tried to, was unaliving a lot of our people then, and, speeded up to 586 BC with the downfall of the temple, speeded up to 70 AD from there, us being, where we had to flee, the temple falling again, where we had to flee into the west parts of Africa, into parts of Europe and parts of Asia, and then as well as the Atlantic slave trade, the sub-Saharan slave trade. They have to pay for all these things, man. It says, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate, right? You're no longer going to be called tender and delicate, man. You're going to be bruised and destroyed. Right now you're losing your beauty and your strength. It says, take the millstone and grind meal under. It says, uncover thy locks, make bare the leg, uncover the thigh, pass over the river. Right, you're being exposed now, man. Your wickedness is being spoken aloud by us as well as other nations, man. Thy nakedness, that's that golden cup that was being passed around, and these countries, these other nations realized that they was fools, man. And when it goes into that word being mad, they was foolish. They realized that, man. That's why that the prophecy is that that it was going to turn against the whore, man. It says, thy nakedness shall be uncovered, right? It says, yea, thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance. See there? You know, so it was better for them to just take the millstone and grind meal, man. You know, or take the millstone and tie it against their neck and jump in the ocean, man. You know, because that's basically what's happening. They're being drugged, you know, to their destruction, man. You know, whether they see it or not. It says, you know, but right now they're just being exposed, right? Thy nakedness shall be uncovered, right? And that's what's happening. Yea, thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance, and I will not meet thee as a man, right? So when the Lord comes, man, he's not coming as a man. He's coming as what? In his glorified form. He's coming in his full strength, man. You know, as for our Redeemer, right? The Lord of hosts is his name, the Holy One of Israel. Sit thou silent and get into darkness, man, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called the Lady of Kingdoms. Right, that golden cup is being passed back to you now, to where you will surely drink. It's like you surely drink. See if I can find it. I knew it wasn't gonna pull it up. All right, this is Jeremiah 49. It says in 12, it says, for thus saith Yahweh, behold, they whose judgment was not to drink of the cup was, which is talking about us, right? The Negroes, Latino, Native American. We weren't supposed to drink of that cup, man, but, you know, we messing up, man. It says, have assuredly drunken, right? And art thou he that shall altogether go unpunished? Thou shalt not go unpunished, but